Hey everyone, welcome to our fourth webinar Wednesday. I'm Tara Davis with the Relationship Playbook for Marriage. Let's give everyone just about 30 more seconds to join us. While we're waiting, today's topic is part 2 of Better Sex. We're going to dive right in to this fantastic topic that we've had so much response from. So let's get started. For whoever joins us, fantastic. You can join us and chime in as you join. Okay, so again, welcome to our Better Sex Talk Part 2. Just to recap, when you want to raise your hand, push on the right side, there is a little hand to raise your hand. You can type in the chat. You can ask any questions. And if there's a lag, sometimes there's a lag, let me know that there's a lag in between you asking the questions and me answering. I'm going to try to take it a little bit slower today. Normally, I'm an incredibly fast talker, so I'm going to take it a little bit slower to give you the opportunity to catch up and to answer the questions. Okay, so let's recap from last week. So last week we talked about the dialogue that goes on in the heads of men and women around sex. And here's what, by and large, goes in the mind of women, is that we have had so much to do on our plate all day long. Oftentimes, sex is the very last thing on our minds. We have, a million things on our to-do list, and sex isn't usually one of them. Completely opposite is the male, who wants to have sex all the time and wants to know how he can help us give us a better day, how he can lessen the load, how he can tiptoe around to make sure that he's not upsetting the apple cart so that he can have sex. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just the fact. It's just what's going on. And I really want to give you some insight into some of the awesome responses that I had from last week. And the responses came from men, which is amazing. I loved that guys were so willing to pop in and give me their 2 cents on how they felt about the topic around sex and what they wanted. So here's what I'm learning that men are desiring. I mean, they still want to have sex. What they desire is a deeper level of intimacy that leads to great sex. So guys actually want to have that deeper level of intimacy. They want to have, flirting without having sex. They want to, be able to touch each other, hold hands without the expectation of sex. Maybe they want just some kissing without the expectation of having sex. They still want to have it, but they want to do everything else that comes before it. They also want a deeper connection with their partner. No matter the shape or size of their partner, they want their partner to know how gorgeous and beautiful she is. And so in listening to this response, particularly, I identified so many years ago when my husband would try to give me these compliments of, babe, you just look beautiful today. I would find every reason to discount what he said of, I feel exhausted today. Oh, I just don't feel good today. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. I look all right. Like all these different ways to discount what my man was telling me of like, babe, you look really great today. Honey, you're beautiful today. You're just so beautiful. My mind would take over with the gazillion reasons of why he was wrong. And I would tell him that. I would tell him all of these reasons why he was wrong. Eventually, he learned that it really wasn't a benefit to him to tell me these things because I didn't know how to receive them. I didn't even know internally that I wasn't receiving them because I didn't know how to receive them, and I believed they really weren't true. So there was a lot of deep work that I did on myself before I am finally now able to really hear and listen and take in and receive that compliment when my husband tells it to me. Besides not being able to bring it in and receive it, I thought that he was just wanting to have sex again. Like, we have the men and the women, we have such a different vibe going on around sex. And so I am super, super grateful for everyone who responded last week, especially the guys who responded with their feedback on what they want, what they don't want, and what they're looking for. So really, by and large, we're actually both the same. We want a deeper, intimate connection. And to get that deeper intimate connection with our partner, it has to come from within first. Okay, also what came about, this was also interesting that we talked about, and this was part of the feedback that came in too, was that when we do have sex, when the guys have sex, or maybe they initiate the sex, and the wives are kind of there, are kind of not, then the guys are left feeling really guilty because as women, we've just kind of shown up because we think it's our job, or we've just kind of shown up because we think, well, I'll just have sex. The guys feel it. I mean, they know it. They are such innate creatures with so much power and wisdom within them. They also know that, well, I think she was just doing it for me. So it wasn't really the connection that they were looking for. That was another big one that was shared with me this week. Also, we talked about all of the tension that surrounds this and everything that we've talked about so far. I mean, can you feel the tension that could possibly be there with the back and forth of truly not knowing ourselves internally, not loving ourselves internally, whether we are male or female? So all of this is kind of convoluted and floating around inside until we choose to start looking at it, until we start to choose to shift the patterns that we have held on to up until this point. Okay, we talked about also expressing ourselves fully. We talked about being honest and what honesty feels like in our body. We didn't talk about spiteful communication of like, yeah, we'll just do it, versus yes, let's do it. So there's two types of communication right there. And the honest communication comes from, this feels really weird to talk about, and let's talk about it anyway. I invite you to just acknowledge the wonky parts of a conversation, the incredible uncomfortable spaces of a conversation that come when we want to talk about sex. I would love a response. If you have any responses on uncomfortable sex talk, that would be awesome, because I'm going to start talking a little bit more here into this week's deep dive into sex. So are there any questions that you have from last week? Are there any questions about communicating, how we communicate around sex, even if it's uncomfortable? How do we bring it up? How do we talk about it? Any questions on that? Okay, and we know that really good sex comes from that place of deep intimacy when we have learned to connect with each other on such a deep level. And we talked about remembering when that particular piece comes up that we've had makeup sex. I know we can all identify with that. The reason why that one was so good was because we've got to a place at the bottom of whatever argument we had, whether it took us 5 minutes or 5 days hopefully not 5 days, maybe 5 hours, maybe 24 hours, but we have gotten to the bottom of that place, of that argument where we have both allowed ourselves to be honest, to be raw, to be open with each other, which allows us to be seen. We have allowed this particular piece of intimacy to rise to the surface and be seen by our partner. We feel heard by our partner. This has given us this space then to open up and have really good sex because we have become intimate at that point. All right, let's talk about, I know this is really uncomfortable. Let's talk about your parents. So a lot of us have hang-ups about sex. Where did those hang-ups come from? And sometimes when I say, let's talk about your parents' sex, I don't even want the visual. Like, don't even visualize it. What I want to talk about is, how did they talk about it? Did they talk about it in a pretty open, direct way? Did they talk about it like it was hush-hush? Did they not even talk about it? Was sex something that wasn't even addressed? That in and of itself speaks volumes. I mean, when we talk about sex in our household, it's something that we still giggle at because we still have one son at home and it's a funny topic. We still talk about it. We still talk about our body parts as they are just the regular body parts, that belong to our body. So there's nothing shameful about our body parts. There's nothing shameful about sex. We talk about it. So how is it in your household? I invite you to dive in. If it's something that you presently don't talk about, start asking yourself why. Like, so my parents never talked about it. Do I want to continue that? Do I want to start opening a conversation? It's never too late, no matter how old your children are, to talk about your body parts, to talk about sex, to talk about whatever that relationship is. So a lot of times as women as well, we have such a history of beliefs around sex. I mean, we might believe it's perverted. We might believe it's something that you don't ever talk about with anyone other than your partner. We might believe that, we have so many beliefs that were given to us throughout our childhood, throughout our culture, throughout our society. I mean, right now society shows women to be, by and large, objectified. So that might be something that's really stuck with you, that I will not be objectified. Therefore, I'm not even going to talk about sex. I mean, whatever goes through your mind, I invite you to just allow this piece of the conversation in your mind to come up, like to come forward and see, where is this for me? Why am I uncomfortable talking about it? Why am I uncomfortable receiving compliments from my partner, from my husband, from my wife? Why am I uncomfortable in this place? What did all of this look like for me growing up? So I know personally, I grew up in a specific religion. We didn't talk about sex at all. And I always thought it was something that was taboo because we didn't talk about it, which just confused me. I thought it was something that no one talked about. You just kind of had to figure out on your own. Therefore, when things are off limits, I mean, as kids, we so want to go there, right? Like we just want to explore something that's off limits. So that was my experience growing up, was that it was off limits. It was only for adults. And I didn't even know if the adults around me talked about it. So I encourage you to dive in to where this piece is for you. What do you want your sex life to look like? This is a completely open discussion between you and your partner. What do you want that sex life to really, really look like? Do you want it to be completely crazy? Do you want it to be completely nurturing? Here is a great response. Well, I had several. Let's take this one first. A great response that I had last week. This was from a husband. Does sex have to always look the same? The question I proposed right back to him, how do you want it to look? By and large, I think sex can look however you want it to look. Do you want it maybe one day to look super crazy and randy? Maybe the next day you just want it quickie, like a nooner. That's all we have time for. Maybe it's the weekend and you've got lots of time. So let yourself off the hook that it needs to look one specific way. Allow yourself to explore how it feels in the moment. And if there are some things that your partner is hesitant to explore with you, I invite you to create a safe space to start talking about it. Because first we have to talk about it before we can actually act on it. We have to feel safe in ourselves before we can feel safe with our partner. Here is another amazing response that I got from 2 different males that said, well, but I'm the husband. Like, why doesn't she feel safe with me? I feel like that's, a given. So several things come up. First of all, even though we're talking about sex and there's 2 people to do this, right? Well, by and large. So take yourself as the partner completely out of the equation. It's not about you on this matter. Like, she should just feel safe with me. I'm the husband, or, the wife. Like, why is my husband not feeling safe? I'm his wife. It has nothing, that safe space has absolutely nothing to do with you. And I say that with all compassion and respect. Take yourself out of the equation. It's about your partner. If your partner doesn't feel safe, at that point, it's all about them and what in them isn't allowing them to feel safe. Have they had some experience or experiences that weren't safe? Have they been exposed to something that didn't feel safe? Do they have beliefs within them that aren't allowing them to move forward and, feel safe? So at that point, there is absolutely nothing about you, unless you've created some reason why they don't feel safe. But by and large, it's all about them. And I invite you not to shame your spouse into saying, well, I'm your husband. I invite you to just ask them, how can I help you with this? How can I help you move forward in this place? Okay, so I see a hand raised, but I don't see any response. I'm going to give you a second. If you have something that you want to chat about, yep, okay, let me know. I think you're typing. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. So, perfect. Let's talk about honesty, because yes, your response. Okay, so the response, or the question is, how do we talk about honesty? How do we bring in this honest conversation? So underlying honesty is how we have been received when we have been honest. So as a child growing up, when we were honest in a situation and we told our truth to the situation, or we told the truth of a particular situation, how was this information received? Were we punished? Were we accused of lying? Were we really received for what we had to say with gratitude? And were we thanked for being honest and speaking our truth, or the truth about the situation? Were we punished? Like, there are so many ways that we learn as children how it is safe to show up in the world. And so, perfect question, because I love that when we need to be honest talking about sex, first of all, we have to dive in and figure out, I don't even know how to be honest. Or I know what happens when I'm honest. I get shut down, or people laugh at me when I'm honest, or I get in trouble. Most of the time, these are kind of playing out in the background. It's not first and foremost. It's not right on the top of our consciousness. It's either a subconscious or an unconscious thought or belief that telling the truth means I'm going to get in trouble, means I'm going to get spanked, means I'm going to get, grounded. Whatever we learned about telling the truth. So when it comes to sex, and we open up this discussion and we want to be honest and want our partner to be honest with us, first of all, let's look at what it means to be honest. I invite you to double check yourself first. What patterns show up? Where do you feel it in your body when you're called to be honest? I mean, a lot of us get nervous when we need to be honest. A lot of us get defensive when we need to be honest. A lot of us put up walls when we need to be honest. A lot of us kind of skirt around the truth when we need to be honest. So what comes up for you when it's time to be honest with your partner? Jot these down, just start recognizing them. Do not blame. Do not try to figure out who made this, gave you this opportunity in your life. I just invite you to start recognizing and noticing these patterns. Then you get to start shifting these patterns. Okay, what thoughts and beliefs do you have around, and these are questions that I would love answers to. We haven't talked about these yet. What has been taboo around sex for you? Well, we've kind of tapped on it, but not really. What has been taboo for your life around sex? I mean, there's so much around sex that can become taboo. Is it playfulness? Is it using, there's all kinds of things that we can use as adults, right? Is that something that's taboo? Is that like just strictly off the table? Like that's not even a topic for discussion? And if it is, where does that come from? Open up that discussion. I mean, that might be super uncomfortable, but it might be something that you want to bring into your sex life. Like there's so much to bring in, but if you feel uncomfortable and your partner feels uncomfortable, or maybe you feel uncomfortable, but your partner would probably be pretty open, start right there. Start with that topic of, this feels so uncomfortable, but I want to start talking about it. Don't know if I ever want to do it, but I want to start the conversation. And if you can't even get that far, then just start with yourself and check in with yourself. Just ask yourself, where did this come from for me, that this is not safe to talk about? Why do I have the belief that this is taboo, that this is off the table? Where did this come from me? And it's probably going to be pretty easy to find out if you just ask. Notice the first things that start popping up in your mind, and don't second guess them. No matter how strange or weird or odd those responses that you get are, I invite you just to write them down, because sometimes we'll forget, or sometimes we will want to forget what these answers are. So I just encourage you to write your answers down or type them out, put them in a notes app, whatever is convenient for you. When you start asking these questions on what is taboo around sex and why, like if you have some seriously strong beliefs around it, fantastic. Start asking yourself, why? Why and where did these super strong beliefs come from? And it's not good or bad, or you don't even need to change them if you don't want to. What I'm encouraging you to do is to start diving in to see, why are these beliefs so strong for me? If you have a belief that any kind of adult play is perverted, where did that belief come from? Why do you feel that you can't speak to your husband? And this kind of, or your wife, this kind of really ties into everything that we've talked about so far. And it doesn't mean that you have to change your mind on anything. What I'm inviting you to do and encouraging you to do is to start opening this discussion around great sex. We all want to have that deep, intimate connection, and it's been solidified by the many, many responses that I received this week, which was amazing. Thank you. And so I would love to have even more response from this talk this week around connecting, especially the males, because I always get so many responses. I mean, I'm totally inviting the women to respond again. I really appreciate and am grateful for the responses from men around what they want, because it's always an eye-opener for me to hear the response around, really, men just want to have intimacy without having sex. Like, they want that connection. So yay, it's there. All right, quick recap. This time goes so fast. So I invite you to start digging into, and please ask any more questions while I'm wrapping this up, if you have any more. Okay, so quick recap. I invite you to start opening up your own conversation with yourself and with your partner around what is uncomfortable, why is it uncomfortable, what are my beliefs around sex, how was I brought up in terms of talking about sex, or anything around sex. What are or were my parents' beliefs around sex? Because that has a really big impact on us. Was it talked about? Was it behind closed doors? That it was never talked about? Was it openly talked about? So I really invite you to start having that, internal dialogue with yourself of, how do my parents view that? And why? And does that fit for me? Or do I want to shift that dialogue for me? Okay, guys, I have really, really loved diving into the topic around sex. I've had the most response about this, so we might have to do it again. Until next time, please respond on my Instagram and my Facebook page. Also, the retreat is coming up quickly. I think we have, 3.5 more weeks to go. You can find all the information on my women's only retreat on my website under therelationshipplaybook.com. Let's see, /events, packages. Gosh, guys, sorry. I think it's under events. Yes, the Relationship Playbook for Marriage /me first is the retreat. Okay, until next time, I will see you then. Cheers.